Welcome to another edition of my UFT video series. I have been putting together a series on the subject of UFT Web recording and testing. It has been a good and challenging adventure so far. I may have 3 to 4 more videos to come before I move on to something else. In this video, I want to proceed on by demonstrating another script generated to test navigating through a web application called Browse Orders. It is another demo offering by SAP using the SAP UI5 technology. This time, my focus will be more on enhancing and overcoming challenges that are presented by the combination of UFT and SAP. My assessment is that UFT is doing a good job with trying to keep up with SAP application design enhancements. But you are the ones who have to be convinced that it is the right tool for SAP automation testing. So I hope I give you enough demonstrations to help with that. This SAP Browse Orders app is designed in such a way that it challenges UFT. Without the AI capability of UFT, it might fall short. My plan in this demo is to briefly cover a walkthrough of the UFT code and testing processes that I experienced testing with the Browse Orders SAP UI5 application. And I also want to provide a more overview of the UFT results reporting. Let's get into it. Well, here we are with round 1 of this new SAP UI5 test script that I have for you that is going to access an application called Browse Orders application. And you saw a little bit of a silent demo earlier in this video in the overview section. And now I want to give you a little bit of tour as the first step in getting to know this new script. Let's start the knowledge transfer with taking a look at the test flow. As you can see here, let me scroll up just a little bit. Yeah, there we are. We have 5 actions in this particular script, and the action 1 is like the driver for action 2, 3, 4, and 5. They're all called by action 1. And so momentarily we're going to look at action 1 again, see what that's about, see how I designed this particular script. Okay, moving back to action 1. So in action 1, as I said, it is the driver, so therefore I'm looking to utilize something like I did before, if you saw my earlier videos, with the run control. So I've called this variable run control. It's defined down here. If I click on the data tab, you can see that there is a value in there, and it's a cell, it's a column, run control, and I use it to populate an internal variable, action variable, if you will, called RC, and then I check that to see what value it has. Well, the values I'm expecting is sanity, menu, search, order. The sanity is about basically doing just what it says, a sanity test, just clicking a couple of objects on the window in the application to make sure it's up and running. So you'll see what that's about. The menu test, well, I'm going through a couple of pop-up menus and letting you see what that's about. And if there's some code concerns, what have you, we'll talk about that as well. Then the search is making use of the search box. This is the only place where you can actually enter something in. As I said, this is a browse orders application, so there's no opportunity for entering data other than the search, and there's no opportunity for updating data or deleting data. It's basically an application set up with 10 orders, and each of them have so many item lines. You can see data that has to do with the collaboration between the customer or CRM type data, as well as shipping data. And that's basically the extent of the application, yet it is a little challenging for a tool like UFT. But we're going to talk about that a little bit more. And finally, the order test. Well, that one, I wanted to have something that would go through browsing, since that's what it is, the application is. So it goes through one or more orders and looks at some of the detail and even captures some of the detail to display it in the results output. And that proved to be an interesting challenge. And we'll talk about that also. And let's see, I think the last line, as usual, is to check we're at the end at this point. Whatever action we chose to go and process, then we indicate on the report output that the test completed successfully, if it got this far. So always be aware you can utilize the report event statement to report whatever conditions, whether it's a pass condition, failure, or it just got done, or there's a warning that you want to communicate. So you have some options with that. Since I'm not going to concentrate much on recording processes in this particular set of videos, what I want you to know is the design behind this particular script. This design tab is what I use to get started with moving to multiple actions. As you should already know, is that once you create your script, initially it creates one action. So you have what's known as action 1. Each of these, as I mentioned before, can be renamed to whatever is appropriate, but I left them as the original name. So we have action 1 through action 5. And I also mentioned that from a design standpoint, I believe there is a tab. Is that it right there? No. I'll leave that alone. Let me just click on there. There's a tab that allows you to just click to expand all of them. Each of these you will see a local reference in the Solutions Explorer panel under each action, and that's associated to each action. Each of these, let me start with action 1. Each of these have its own object repository. And so when you start to record interactions, navigation through an application from an action, what it does, what UFT does, is create definitions for you in what's called the object repository. That's an important piece of the development or design, because one of the things you've got to be concerned with is what is defined or gets defined in your action, because you can't reference something that's not defined in that action. And so one of the ways you can make sure that that is there is record into the action. When you record navigation to the application, of course, whatever objects you focus on, click on, hover over, things like that, it's going to capture that information and create a definition setup in your object repository for that particular action. Now, of course, if you want to create additional actions like I did, then you have to make a choice as to what do you want to do. Do you want to start with something that has some objects defined or not? And in the design menu, that's where you make one of those decisions. Because if you create additional, say, action 2, 3, 4, 5, then you have to decide, is it going to be just a new action and it's going to have a empty object repository, or if you do the call to copy, then it's going to create a new action with a copy of the object repository. That's what it's really talking about. But of course, it's also going to give you the code that's in the action itself. Then there's calling to an existing action. You can actually make calls from in this action, this script, to another action in another script. That gets a little bit more complicated. I don't usually go that route. I usually try to make my scripts independent of each other. But you could make use of code in what's called a function library, and that's for another video. But that is a way to take code out of your actions, move them to a library that is available to any script you develop. That's a nice feature within UFT. And then, of course, API, an existing API test script. I haven't yet even created API test scripts. I have to look at that at some point. Anyway, there's some other things that you can get into with designing as far as checkpointing is concerned, output data is concerned, creating start and end transactions to put timings on different processes within your code, and checking the syntax, generating steps, and so on. And more so the function generator I was talking about too. Okay, that's enough on design. Okay, that was a quick lie there. I want to mention a little bit more in talking about Action 1 about design. So I designed this particular script to actually have multiple internal scripts. And as I mentioned, I talked about which ones. So when you specify that you want to do a menu test, then it's going to run this action, action 2, or sanity, action 3, and so on. Now, each one has its own set of code. Each one executes independently of the other. They're not designed to run all in a sequence or all together to produce a complete output. You have to run each one individually. Basically, you use the run control to do that. Now, you can specify multiple cells, multiple rows, one for each of those tests, and then you will actually be causing the script to run each one of the actions in some sequence, and you control what that sequence is. I have not tested it to do that, but it is capable of doing so. Now, let's go ahead and talk about the first particular action that was developed. And this one is the menu, Action 2. I'll go ahead over here on the left, double click, and here we are in Action 2. Now, at the front of each one, I decided to add a little text information, just a reminder of what it is and so on. That's not a bad practice to do, but let me not dwell on that too long. Now, we do have these normal generated statements that occurs during the during the record session. And sometimes, as I mentioned before, won't get into it in much detail here, sometimes you have to comment out or delete particular statements that it tries to do, and it's not always that helpful. And these are those checkpoints. Also, remember that when you are utilizing AI, that this is a statement, and there are different flavors of it, if you will, but it's called a context statement for AI. That needs to be near the beginning of your scripts if your particular action is going to have any AI statements within it. If you're going to develop some of the process, your code with AI, you're going to need that statement. Otherwise, it's going to give you an error message indicating that you don't have a context statement to start the process of using AI. Okay. Now, I have some commented out values, and I believe I utilized those elsewhere in this particular action. What I have left it there to remind me is to tell you that sometimes it's a good idea from a design standpoint to look into developing some of your AI process before you intend to utilize it, in case you need to use it, but you may not need to use it. And that's where I commented out. And later on, if I need to do some further development, further enhancement to this particular action, it might be something I need and can use. For instance, being able to find the order statement that tells you how many orders. That's a constant statement in the particular application. Let me uncomment that because I want to tell you one more thing. And be aware that just because it shows click there doesn't mean that's all you have. If you backspace on that and get rid of the period, now when you enter a period, you will get a pop-up because UFT has IntelliSense included in its process, in its editing, and that allows you to select from a number of different methods or properties that you might need other than, let's say, the click. And with any of them, you just double click on it to cause it to display that information. If you click one time, it's going to give you a little pop-up to tell you, okay, what is that? As far as AI is concerned, in this case, what is check exists? Hopefully you're getting that. You understand that? So you can get at least some idea of what that action or property is. And you can include that in your test. Now, let me double click on exist again. I'll just put that one there and comment it out. Excuse me. So a mention on that. That's a good statement to check for the existence. What I call existence testing is a very important part of your testing scripts. So that is a good way to test to see, is that object on the screen or in the page at a particular point in time. All right, let's move on to give you some more feel for this particular application, and then we'll go an application, this particular test script, and then we'll run to see what it does. Alrighty, now I've got some captions here, display pop-up menu, and so on the pop-up menu you can make certain selections. That's what this is about here. I also have something that I want to mention to you, and I've taken this code. I probably need to go ahead and just create a little function with it and call it anytime it's needed. That's really, I had not been thinking about that, but sorry. Let me do that one more time. All the way down there. Great. All right. This little function is just what I commented it out to be: move slide bar up. So I could have a function to move it up, and I could have one to move it down. And there's also one that utilizes a different AI function or statement that does the movement up or down, or if you've got a horizontal bar, you could also do that, move that from right to left or left to right. So that's a good set of functions to have so that you can utilize that throughout your code when you need it. Because what I found was that it looks like there might be a bug, that's my assessment, that in UFT AI processing, what may happen is, no, it's probably not the AI so much as the tool that's used to interface with the browser. That agent seems to be causing a movement of the screen. When you're on a screen for a certain length of time where it's displaying and processing certain objects on the screen, then it tends to want to move, slide down. And what happens is some objects that you might be trying to reference gets out of scope. And so then you get errors in your script. So I put together this little function, and I have another one I'll show you in a different action. I think it's action 5, where I utilize a different functionality to do basically the same thing. I also have a different function that does a double click rather than a single click. And that is just about moving faster through up or down. Mostly what I have is up. I might end up needing some down. I may just go ahead and create some functions to that. As a matter of fact, I'm planning to have one of my videos is going to be on the subject of functions, subroutines put out in the function library and referenced within scripts. So I want to talk about that then, and I will have more of those available. All right, I believe that I've talked enough on that one. I have some other commented out items that we recorded and then decided, okay, we don't need to do that. Or in some cases, it didn't work, and I didn't want to spend the time trying to find something that will make it work. I did quite a bit of that in the other actions. All right, so let's just move on. I wanted this one to be simple. This is about going after the menus when they pop up, making a couple of selections just to test out the menu process within the application. And there's, I think, 2 main menus that pop up. And So here is some code to go through that process. Again, we're using some AI. Those were not recorded. Those I went back through and added. And so everything that has AI util is a result of AI. And if you remember what I said, you go up to this AI menu here, click on it, and you can start the object inspection. That's a nice functionality to be able to look at your particular page and it detect all the objects on the page, and then you can click on those objects and get code added into your action. And then from there, tweak that code to using if statements and what have you to further analyze what is going on in the application. Also, you have these other icons, menus that you can make use of to look at AI. I think there's this guy here, and I think there was another one somewhere. No, that may be, right here, to get the Object Identification Center, or OIC, or the Object Spy. Now, Object Spy is not AI. This one is AI. This one is the traditional way of detecting objects on the screen. And as I told you before, that is like utilizing inspect in your browser. Okay. Enough on that. Then selections as is, which defaults to ascending order. That's one of the functions within the menu. Then the grouping function. So this is doing some processing on that. And second row and third row. Let's see any more. Synchronizing. Some places you need to put in the sync statement. Some places you do not. You basically want to make sure it has enough time when it needs it before it tries to detect the first object on a particular new page. That's a good way of thinking about that, if you will. There's another, this is the double click, but I still have this same little slide bar code or function, if you will. I'm going to start calling it that. Okay. What else is in here? This is one, it still has a decent amount of code in it to just do menu testing. And then finally end up, okay, looks like I did not put a statement in here, and I'm going to do that now. We want a reporter dot event, report event, spacebar, and these are those selections I was talking about. I want to put a McPass and comma, and then I'll put in a couple of values. The first one is going to be that step name, if you will, and the other one is going to be details. All right, so I'm saying here I want to do a test check, not test check, action test or action check. Oops. And then indicate this is action 2 is completed. And it will have, because of the McPass, it's going to have passed as the status. All right, so that added the statement there. I'm surprised. I thought I had that there. I haven't noticed that I did not. All right, hopefully everything will run as it did when I last tested. If not, we won't spend a lot of time on that. I spent many hours, I want you to know, on Action 5 alone. That was about 3 days worth of work. But we have something that's usable for me to definitely share some experiences with you. Okay, moving on. Let's go ahead and make sure that's saved. Click the Save All button. And now let's go ahead and execute that, see what we get. One other thing, the important thing to note is what action or what are we specifying in the run control. I want a menu test, MENU. And then I can scroll back up. So now we have menu in there. If we go back to action 1, menu is going to take us to action 2. So one more time on the Save All. And let's go ahead and execute. Also, by the way, be careful. If you see little images right below the arrow here, then it means it's set to go to either maintenance run mode or update run mode. I've yet to see much value in that. Maybe somebody else might disagree with me, but it hasn't been of value to me. I mainly do the run, or I come up here and do run into, which is very good to go one statement at a time, and that's how you start, and then you can continue that way. And once you're satisfied, if you want to just stop, you want to go through the entire remaining of the script, there will be a continue option that will show up in this run pull down menu. But the step into, and let's see if there's another one. Sometimes run from a step or run to a step is also useful. And then breakpoints, and you can click outside on the left of the numbers to get it to set a breakpoint so that when it runs, it will stop at that particular point where you can then do some debugging if you need to do it. I certainly had to do quite a bit once again on the Action 5. All right, let's go ahead and try to execute this now. It should go through the menu, and I'm set for temporary output on the results. So I'll be overlaying outputs every time I rerun any action. Takes a few seconds to get started. Some things the little elves are doing behind the scene. Almost there. Getting ready to engage the application. Here it is. It's a fairly simple application, but it's done with the UI5 technology. So here it goes, popping up one of the menus, and it should momentarily do the same for that one on the right. There it goes. Displays an order, another order, group by period. You can see the dates. I think we're almost to the end of this round of testing. Descending order. Here we are. Let me just wait a second to see if that stays on top. Sometimes it does, sometimes it does not. It's not a consistent thing. It may, from time to time, pop up back to there it goes. It's gone back to the IDE. and the results are behind the scenes. So if I switch it to that mode, now I can see the results. It took almost 2 minutes for that test. And I want to try to remember to let you know how much time it takes on some of these tests. But it did pass. And let's click on that to see the rest of it. I'll expand, and you can see quite a bit of output here. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on that, but remember, when you're scrolling through this is nice. You can actually see, and I had to make sure that it stayed up at the top so that we wouldn't have problems with existence tests on the objects later on in the script process. And there it is again. I did the double click in this case there. So it looks like I did it 3 times in this one script to make sure that we weren't having problems with that, because I definitely was experiencing that quite a bit. Okay, and of course the action check that tells us action 2 is completed, it passed, we're good. And it's nice to see the check marks. You get them also with the existence tests. There's another one. And so sometimes you need to do that to make sure that, and I will add it to an if clause as well, to make sure that if it is in existence and I want to be able to interact with that particular object, well then I can, because I know it exists. All right, I believe that's pretty much it for this one. I'm also looking at my time, and I think I'm going to have to stop at this point and resume in yet another video. I don't want to have these videos too long for you. I want to keep your attention on them. And so, again, I'd like to thank you for your time. So check out my follow-up demo videos that demonstrate using UFT for recording and testing web applications. The videos should be entitled something like UFT Web Recording and Testing.